Welcome to a busted play, an illegal use of hands to the face short.
All right, I'm excited to get back talking about some NFL football because if you want to talk about this team right here, it's absolutely miserable. Other college football action has been interesting. They've been doing terrible. Let's talk about Sunday night and what's going to go down in Baltimore because Baltimore has a home game against the Kansas City
Yeah.
Chiefs. So, what do you think is going to happen here?
I think the Chiefs are going to win. I don't think I'm alone in that sentiment either. The Ravens didn't look that crisp against the Raiders, but I mean, how can you blame them for not? They have like their entire running back room destroyed, and their QB really isn't getting much help in the receiving game because their number one pick that they took to be top receiver for him is hurt. And even week one, Sammy Watkins did not turn up that much. Mark Andrews, he had a rough game. Hopefully he bounces back as he's the number one target. But I mean, depending on the percent of plays that Pat Ricard is in the slot, I think that's going to be what gives the Ravens the win over the Chiefs.
What if week one Sammy Watkins is actually just 17 weeks before the end of the season? And it's because we added a game that it threw everything off. So now it's actually week two Sammy Watkins because we added a game.
Well, now you put that in there, and also revenge game Sammy Watkins in there too. So we might be like the first ever 500-yard receiving game from anyone. I'm looking very forward to that. Now that you phrased it that way.
Sammy Watkins has been a really fun player just to follow around the league because he's always been good enough to stick around and then just every once in a while have a really explosive game. As for like number one receiving threat on the Ravens, I still feel like it's Mark Andrews, so I don't think losing the guys in the draft actually necessarily made them lose their number one receiving weapon, but absolutely the injuries are killing them, and I would not say that even though they played the Raiders last week, I mean that's a tough. No matter who they played week one because of the injuries, it was going to be a tough start. At least they've got one game under their belt now. But geez, if there was a second team that you didn't want to see, the week after to still try to get under control with all these injuries, it's Kansas City. So I don't think that's a very good spot for them to be in. Although, if you want to talk about the Raiders compared to either of these teams, I mean, the Raiders have had success against both these teams recently. So maybe
Exactly.
maybe that's a big thing that you're missing out on with your perspective.
hmm I mean, I just feel like I need to keep talking about the Ravens because the Chiefs get talked about so much, and I'm not going to bring anything new to the conversation about the Chiefs. Like, yeah, they took care of business last week against the Browns, and Pat Mahomes pulled stuff out of his rear end like he has his entire career. And if it comes down to it being a close game, I'm not going to bet against him from him doing the same thing again. Uh, I mean, I would love to see Pat Mahomes get handed his first loss in September. I'd love to see that. Seems like every good team in the league had a rough week one, even the Chiefs included in that. Uh, but I mean, away like the Buccaneers and the Chiefs both had rough games. The Buccaneers, though, that was just because of sloppy turnovers, and the Chiefs are like actually be doing what they've done the past 3 years, where it's just, okay, this is a close game, but we know when the fourth quarter comes around, Mahomes is just going to do some crazy stuff and win it for us. Which, I mean, that just must be amazing for Chiefs fans to know that you're never out of the game, even when you got like 10 minutes left and
Yeah,
you're down two or three scores.
Yeah, the interesting thing though is that even though Mahomes has made that like kind of a consistent part of the Chiefs just being able to come back in late game situations and always pull it out, that really hasn't happened when he's went up against Baltimore. Every time he's played
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore, it's just kind of been that the Chiefs have controlled the majority of the
Yep.
game. And I think even last year we were hanging out. We didn't get a chance to like watch the beginning of the game, but we were hanging out at the end of the Baltimore Kansas City game. We got together after it, and it was just like, man, it's like the start of the fourth quarter. This game's over though. Like it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. There's nothing to be played for, and it's just like I can't believe two solid teams. I think they've played three times since Mahomes has been the starter in Kansas City, and I think all 3 games the Chiefs have really dominated. So the Ravens are in a tough spot with the injuries already, plus the fact that Kansas City has had their number recently. I'm really looking to see like what the Ravens will be able to do. Because if the Ravens don't show anything in this game, to like I don't think their season's over if they drop to 0-2, but I think it does mean like how far can this team go in the playoffs, which has been the question in the past few years, and I think it'll just like prove the point that we are not really going to consider this team to be a deep playoff team anytime soon, just because of what's happening if they can't be at least competitive with Kansas City in this game.
Yeah, and just the Ravens secondary too, with all that. I completely agree with what you said. And the Ravens secondary kind of got picked apart towards the end of that game by Derek Carr. I mean, Marlon Humphrey, their best player in that secondary, letting up the game-winning touchdown. Uh, this is going to be an actual test for them. This is trial by fire. Like Derek Carr was a warm-up. I mean, whoever was on Darren Waller, great job. You held him to 50% catch rate from his targets. Awesome. But I don't think Mahomes is going to exclusively throw the ball to Travis Kelce the entire game. Marlon Humphrey is going to have his work cut out. I'm going to assume he's covering Tyreek Hill a majority of the game when they run man. And I know that they love running man-to-man and cover zero on that team. It's going to be hard to do that, especially now without Marcus Peters.
Yeah. Considering what the Ravens did to Darren Waller last week in terms of 20 targets, 10 receptions, I think that's great. And I think if Patrick Queen, if they either continue with what they did last week or, just put Patrick Queen basically always on Travis Kelce if they're worried about like manning guys up a lot, and then go Marlon Humphrey on Tyreek Hill, I don't think the matchup for them is terrible on defense, especially because I think they've got a great defensive coordinator. It's just that I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off. I don't know if those guys are still so talented enough that like it won't matter. Because I think Marlon Humphrey is like one of the best corners in the league. But who in the world is going to be able to keep up with Tyreek for 4 quarters? It doesn't seem like anybody in the league can do that. Because you'd have to be a corner that's like meant to play against him. And there's not very many corners that are just like purely built to run with Tyreek Hill. There's almost zero in the league. I couldn't even name one.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to take Mecole Hardman and turn the corner, then I mean they probably have like the only guys that can cover Tyreek Hill on the team, and they're playing offense for them.
Yeah. What else is interesting is just like I'm wondering how the Ravens are going to look running the ball again this week. I'm wondering if they worked more mesh points with Tyson Williams and Lamar Jackson so that they can actually get back to running a lot of read option looks that they like, as opposed to just straight handoffs and or bootlegs where they didn't really need to have a significant mesh. And then also like how much did Latavius Murray get enough practice to really feel good about having him in the game for a significant amount of snaps? If those two things, if just that actual ease of running the ball, which is crazy to say in the NFL, like actually just being able to complete plays without messing up very simple things. If they can do that, that obviously makes the game a lot more interesting because that's a huge part of their offense. And I just want to see like better ball control from I feel like Lamar fumbling twice at the end of that Raiders game was pretty big deal. So just want to make sure that gets a little more under control for him and how he can go with that. As for the passing game, I am really interested to see which receiver they try to get more involved. Running backs kind of know what we're going to get. Mark Andrews is still going to be the number 1 tight end, but really want to see how they develop that passing game with the receivers more.
Yeah, get Tylan Wallace out there more. I was pretty bummed to see lack of use of him. I mean, I'd like to see Marquise Brown used more frequently. I was surprised with the amount of targets that he got in that Raiders game. I thought it would have been far less. And yeah, it just seems like the receiver production all throughout that Raiders game was kind of low. Like even Sammy Watkins, who I thought like, yeah, all these passes are going to go his way. When it's to a receiver, wasn't really that high. So
Yeah.
little shocked with the receiver production all around for the Ravens.
Yeah, and you want to, I mean, you're mentioning Tylan Wallace, so I think it's kind of important to talk about just rookie receivers in general. Those guys that went like as the top three receiver, Waddle, Smith, and Chase, all did great work week one, which was good. But then there were a lot of mid-round guys and later round guys that we thought could step in for teams and play big roles. The only team that used anybody like as a receiver past those top three guys, even Kadarius Toney is getting underutilized, is De'Ami Brown, and that's why we complimented the football team for actually using a later or mid-round guy in their offense early in the season because nobody else has. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. He should be getting on the field more.
Yeah, yeah. Kicker battle too. I'm trying to think about every talked about the two of the three phases of the game. Two of the best kickers going at it too in this game too with just Tucker and Harrison Butker.
That's true. Do you think there's anything significant on Kansas City's defense that is like a big blocker for like the success of the Ravens, like one guy specifically that you're going to pick out?
Jerry Sneed.
Okay. I wouldn't have picked him. Why is he gonna be manned up on Andrews? You think, or what role do
I
you think
think
he
yeah,
plays?
I think he's gonna be the guy that has the Andrews assignment. I mean, maybe Willie Gay. He might be the one. Whoever is manned up on Mark Andrews, I think is going to be the one that could really throw a wrench in that place because no one's going to stop Lamar from running.
Well,
So
I don't think that there's anybody that can take over the game on the defensive side for Kansas City. I think they'll
mhm.
know to not like get too aggressive with anything near Tyrann Mathieu. And I just think with how the offense is built, it would be hard for like Chris Jones to take over the game. The one guy that I'm kind of watching still, Nick Bolton, because he played significant snaps for them last week. I'm still interested to see more of him and what type of role he can play for the defense of the Kansas City Chiefs. Um, but yeah, I feel like we hit most stuff. For an actual game pick, what do you think you got? What are you thinking?
I got Kansas City.
What's the score?
31-20.
Okay, I got Kansas City. Uh, this is not an opportunity that comes up very often that I don't feel like ridiculous, like just being like stupid about it. Like we talked about how we got our upsets and our locks. I don't think there's very many opportunities where you can lock a team like Kansas City because it's just like, oh come on, Kansas City's playing like
Yeah.
who do you even want to throw any team out there that's just trash? It's just like, oh, you're locking up Kansas City versus them. Yeah, obviously. Well, they're playing a good team this week, so one of the few opportunities I get to lock up Kansas City, I will. But I'll also kind of double down on it. I'll say 35-17 final.
Oh wow! All right, so you're very big disparity there.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm not expecting a lot from the Ravens. I still think the Ravens are going to be very good this season. I think they got a tough draw these first 2 weeks with the injuries in week one and Kansas City in week two.
Okay, it's a good thing you clarified there. I'm like, yeah, the Raiders week one was a really tough draw for them, but circumstances it is. Circumstances it is.
Yeah. You all set?
Yeah, I think we can cut this here.